The King's Avatar, Chapter 1626, An Existence Surpassing Common Sense. Audio source, wushaworldaudiobook.com. Chapter 1626, An Existence Surpassing Common Sense. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Samsara's falling apart. The pro players started discussing the issue spiritedly. There had been two separate battles taking place. On Happy's side, there was Qiao Yivan and An Wenyi. Now, Su Mucheng and Fang Rui were on their way to help after resolving their battle. Happy's two sides were gradually coming together, beautifully linking up with each other. As for Samsara, they had failed to take down Yishu in a 3v1. They had failed to take down Fang Rui in a 2v1. Then, Su Mucheng arrived and worked together with Fang Rui to take down their Du Ming. It wasn't that Samsara didn't care about linking their two sides together, but rather that their link had been thoroughly severed by Happy. As for how, the pro players looked at each other in dismay. One side had been stalling 1v3, while the other side had been stalling 1v2. What type of tactic was this? This was a star tactic. Happy versus Samsara. Samsara was the only team in the alliance with 4 all-stars. Of these 4, 3 of them were ranked among the top 10. Samsara couldn't shine any brighter, yet they had actually been stifled by a star tactic from Happy. The standard star tactic was to rely on the team's star player to fight against the opposing team at a numbers disadvantage. By doing this, his teammates would conversely have the numbers advantage in their battle, which would then be used to win. There could be 2 or even 3 separate battles taking place. But in either case, there would be one battle where the team would be at a numbers disadvantage and another battle where the team would be at a numbers advantage. The battle where there was a numbers disadvantage would depend on the star's superior skill to make up for it. This was the crux of a star tactic. There had indeed been battles this match where Happy was at a numbers disadvantage, but Happy didn't use it to get a fight where they had the numbers advantage. Happy had undoubtedly employed a star tactic. The usual tactic wasn't seen, not because Happy didn't have a choice. Su Mucheng, Fang Rui, and Qiao Yivan had gone to intercept Happy's healer with clear intentions of fighting Samsara with a numbers advantage. It was just that they ended up in a situation where the terrain for the fight was advantageous enough that they didn't need the numbers advantage. Since Qiao Yivan wasn't needed, he went to go help Yishu, who was stalling 1v3. Yishu was the reason that Happy had the upper hand. From the hard numbers of the 4 attackers on Happy, Yishu's Lord Grim might have the lowest DPS and the lowest health. However, he was the key to why Happy was able to obtain this lead. Without his efforts as the foundation, none of what happened would have happened. This was Glory's number 1 player. A single player holding off against 3 top 10 players. Among these was Zhou Zekai, who was ranked first on the All-Stars list. Using the word star to describe this performance was too degrading. This was a superstar, an ultra superstar. No one knew how to describe using words what Yishu had done because it didn't seem like something a human could do. It wasn't like Happy had never employed this type of tactic before. You wouldn't even need to look too far back. The most recent case was in their first game against Blue Rain in the playoffs. Happy had relied on Wei Chen to stall Blue Rain 1v2. It could be considered a star tactic, but it wasn't a very thorough one. Wei Chen hadn't actually established an equilibrium in his battle. In reality, his role was more as a sacrifice. He had sacrificed himself to stall for as much time as possible so that the others on Happy could accomplish their true objective. It was a bit different from a star tactic on a fundamental level. On the other hand, in their away game today against Samsara, Happy was employing a true star tactic. Moreover, in this star tactic, Yizhu need to hold off against top players. In fact, their current fame even surpassed Yizhu's. Unfortunately, the three top players on Samsara had been held off. In front of Yizhu, their star power appeared dim and dull. The star tactic wasn't just a tactic, but also a display of skill, using overwhelming skill to fend off against superior numbers. This was the core of the star tactic. It was hard to argue against this point, and it was precisely for this reason that no one thought Yizhu would be able to succeed against the likes of Sun Xiang, Jiang Botao, and Zhou Zekai. How could he not be defeated? To everyone, it wasn't even a question. Samsara was no exception. That was why they didn't think they would fall apart. They thought that they would be able to quickly make short work of Yizhu. Who would think otherwise? It was practically common sense. The pro players watching the match had thought the same. But Yizhu was an existence that surpassed common sense. The situation seemed to be getting more and more disadvantageous for Samsara, but the players themselves were still quite upbeat. Rising Dragon soars the sky. Sun Xiang's one autumn leaf swung at the trash pile. The loosely piled up trash didn't form much of a resistance. The magic transformed into a dragon and pierced straight through the trash. However, the grab priority Rising Dragon soars the sky was quite an imposing attack. Such an explosive force created quite a lot of noise. Yizhu and Wenyi didn't act like they hadn't noticed. Dodge. WushOurWorldAudio.com. Lord Grim and Little Cold Hands immediately moved away from the garbage heap. Then, they saw dots of light coming out from the trash. The light became more and more dense until the dots of light converged together to form a brilliant ball of light that seemed to be dissolving everything it touched. Rising Dragon soars the sky. A flying dragon tore through the garbage heap. If Yizhu and Wenyi had reacted slightly slower, they would have likely been devoured by the attack. Rising Dragon soars the sky missed, but it had disrupted Yizhu's and Wenyi's movements. Zhou Zekai was watching him intently from behind. How could he miss such an opportunity? Bullets rained down. Jiang Botao used the bullets as cover to close the distance. Light wave / empty waves rushed out and swung his sword, using the Spellblade's fastest wave / skill. The attack was tricky too. It wasn't directly aimed towards Lord Grim or Little Cold Hands, but rather right in the middle between them. As a result, if the two wanted to dodge the attack, they would need to dodge in opposite directions. It would force the two of them apart by 1 or 2 steps of distance. Don't look down on a distance of a few steps. In this situation, it was a heavy blow. This separation would likely make it so that the two of them would have to escape from their pursuers on their own. Yizhu had the ability to contend against the three of them, but Wenyi. Without Yizhu's protection, he would certainly die. So the attack couldn't be dodged. Hua. The myriad manifestations umbrella opened up. Because of the burst from Cloud Piercer, the shield form wasn't a good option. However, right now, it was the only option. The durability on the umbrella was quickly being depleted. Happy had the upper hand. Yes, from an overall perspective. However, they first need to get past this current obstacle. No matter how you looked at it, they were facing one of Glory's strongest trios, and none of them had lost any of their fighting strength. End chapter. The King's Avatar, Chapter 1627. Stake everything in one throw. Audio source, WushOurWorldAudiobook.com. Chapter 1627. Stake everything in one throw. Translator, Nomyami. Editor, Nomyami. Wenyi definitely wasn't the best in terms of technique, but his ability to assess the situation was absolutely at the top. Lu Boyuan saw that Du Ming had stayed behind to stop Fang Rui and Su Mucheng from reaching him, so he resisted the urge to turn back and rescue Du Ming. What about An Wenyi? He was in a similar situation, being protected by Yi Xiu. He didn't hesitate, and immediately had Little Cold Hands run away. Yi Xiu was thankful. Chen Guo didn't like this part of An Wenyi, but Yi Xiu was quite thankful for it. A healer need this sort of calm and rationality. In the beginning, when he first met An Wenyi's Little Cold Hand, it was his clear judgment and machine-like precision that had gotten Yi Xiu's attention. Later on, he discovered that An Wenyi also possessed this rationality. For Yi Xiu, it was like buying one thing but getting another for free. How could he not be happy? And Wenyi didn't lose this characteristic of his on the competitive stage. Even if he had always been regarded as Happy's weakness, he didn't stop trying his best to seize every opportunity he saw. He had survived in Happy as their weak point. Happy had devised strategies revolving around him as the weak point. Not only did An Wenyi not object, he cooperated with them earnestly. It was impossible for him not to feel a bit embarrassed or worried, but he was a rational person. He recognized that this was the best way to use him. That was why he didn't object or let these emotions affect him. He was constantly trying to improve. During this process, he wanted to make himself as useful as possible to the team. Whether it was using his strengths or his weaknesses, he would find the most suitable way to coordinate with the team. If it wasn't for his almost heartless rationality, it would be very difficult for him to achieve this goal. His rationality was the true source of his value on the team. Because of his rationality, he was able to play in a way that caught Yi Xiu's attention out of the countless number of other players in the game. Because of his rationality, even though he wasn't the most skilled, he knew how to do what the team need, whether that need was a usage of his strengths or his weaknesses. Because of this rationality, he could worry but never waver when facing a difficult choice. He had persevered. 2 years ago, he had been just another player in the heavenly domain. He was someone who couldn't even make it to the elite ranks of tyrannical ambition. 2 years later, he had made his way to the playoffs. Here, he eliminated Tyranny's vice-captain, Glory's #1 healer, Zhang Xinji. Now, he stood together with his team together in the finals, at the highest stage in Glory. And Wenyi was an extremely rational person, yet everything that had happened sounded like nonsense. The journey hadn't been an easy one, and it only made him treasure it all the more. He treasured using everything at his disposal to help the team win. This was why he ignored whether Yi Xiu's Lord Grim lived or died. His Little Cold Hands turned tail and ran for his life. Because this was the best way for him to help Happy win. 3v3. It didn't feel like a 3v3. Qiao Yifan's 1-inch ash had taken a different route than them. And when Yi's Little Cold Hands and Yi Xiu's Lord Grim retreated together, but during their retreat, they encountered a problem. Lord Grim had been tossed aside so that Little Cold Hands could get away. In the blink of an eye, it was Yi Xiu versus Zhou Zekai, Jiang Botao, and Sun Xiang again. For a moment, Samsara had trouble digesting this sudden change. From their understanding, and when Yi should have stayed behind to help Lord Grim hold them off until Qiao Yifan's 1-inch ash looped back around to their rescue. Based on this understanding, they had already planned out how they could take advantage of this somewhat clumsy cleric to trouble Yi Xiu. The healer need to be protected, after all. But the cleric just threw Yi Xiu aside and ran away. It went against common sense. Where was the loyalty, the self-sacrifice? The three on Samsara felt uncomfortable, not at Yi Xiu's situation, but at their own. With and when he used Little Cold Hands running away, they would once again be facing Yishu in a 3v1. It was the exact same situation as before. They would rather have Little Cold Hands stay behind for a 3v2. That way, they could use Little Cold Hands to hinder Lord Grimm. A 3v2 would actually be easier for them. As a result, one autumn leaf rushed out. Sun Qiang was the one who wanted to surpass Yishu the most, but right now, he gave up on Yishu. With Cloud Piercer and Empty Waves suppressing Lord Grimm, he had one autumn leaf chase after Little Cold Hands. The three on Samsara felt like this was better than focusing only on Yishu's Lord Grimm. Yishu was truly too troublesome to deal with. The myriad manifestations umbrella suddenly let out a cold light. The umbrella was still floating in the air, but Lord Grimm had made his way to one autumn leaf's side. Shingcut. Sun Qiang wasn't able to react to it, and the Shingcut hit him. Even though the attack didn't have a strong knockback, it had caught Sun Qiang off guard. One autumn leaf stumbled into the nearby garbage heap. Zhou Zekai and Jiang Botao were startled. This mix-up had come as a complete surprise. Lord Grimm had made his way to one autumn leaf's side, but his weapon was still in its original position. Did he throw his weapon away? Soul Guidance. Any pro player would think it was Soul Guidance when they saw a weapon being thrown, but that would be impossible, because Lord Grimm had used Shingcut. Although Soul Guidance would toss out the weapon, it wasn't a drop. The weapon was considered equipped, and only skills per time to the weapon's class could be used. It wasn't possible to switch weapons while using it either. But Lord Grimm had clearly used a skill from a different class. If he didn't have the right weapon equipped, it wouldn't be possible for him to use Shingcut. Had he brought along a second weapon? Or maybe the myriad manifestations umbrella could be split into two. He dropped one half of it, but continued to use the other half. How confusing. For now, it wasn't possible to figure out what had really happened. However, the myriad manifestations umbrella being dropped onto the ground was a fact. Jiang Botao reacted immediately. Empty Waves rushed towards it without regard for anything else. The only thing in his sights was the myriad manifestations umbrella. If could pick it up, wouldn't Lord Grimm become completely useless? Picking up the opponent's weapon in a competitive match. It had never happened before in the Glory Alliance. No one remembered if the competitive rules had anything regarding it. Even the veteran, Li Yibo, wasn't certain. He wasn't sure what to say, although luckily for him, there was no time for him to say anything. Just when Jiang Botao's Empty Waves was about to grab the umbrella, a very unfamiliar move on the competitive stage, the myriad manifestations umbrella suddenly flipped over. There was no thrusting motion, yet the umbrella was already pierced through Empty Waves. Lord Grimm once again appeared right before him. Impossible. How could he be so fast? Jiang Botao looked to the side out of instinct. As he turned around, Lord Grimm used Circle Swing. As a result, Jiang Botao saw Lord Grimm again, standing where one autumn leaf had been. In his hands was a dagger. A shadow clone. Shadow clone technique. Jiang Botao's screen turned pitch black. WuxRWorldAudio.com. Blind. No. Lord Grimm had thrown him into the garbage heap using Circle Swing. The garbage was physically blocking his sight. The garbage heap loosened, and Empty Waves plunged straight into it. His two legs were dangling in the air. The Samsara fans wanted to laugh, but they couldn't. It was extremely embarrassing. On the other hand, the pro players had no pity for him. They had started roaring in laughter. He definitely did it on purpose. Chu Youngshu pointed at Lord Grimm on screen, laughing uncontrollably. Everyone agreed. tossing the myriad manifestations umbrella as bait. Shin cut to block one autumn leaf, shadow clone technique to get back, and then a circle swing to throw empty waves into the garbage heap. Everything had been calculated. If Yishu wasn't confident he would succeed, how could he have thrown away his character's lifeline so easily? Senior Yishu really is brave though. The rookies couldn't manage to laugh. They had been frightened to death. Let alone a weapon as important as the myriad manifestations umbrella. The thought of throwing even a normal weapon scared them. This sort of method was truly difficult for them to accept. Even though Yishu had probably calculated it all beforehand, matches were always full of twists and turns. What if the Shincut had missed one autumn leaf, and Sun Xiang counterattacked? What if while he was using shadow clone technique, Cloud Piercer hit him before he finished the seals? Although none of that happened, the possibility of a mistake gave the rookies lingering fear. That's why they say, the truly capable are daring. Someone sighed. The truly capable are daring. Everyone fell silent. It didn't feel quite right. The truly capable. That was a gamble, risking everything. Had that moment really been that important? That you need to stake everything in one throw? A scare and a laugh. In the end, they analyzed the play like they normally did. Yishu's Lord Grimm had already rushed out towards Cloud Piercer, who was standing on top of a nearby garbage heap. At the same time, the sound of cannon fire boomed. Sumuchung. Dancing rain. She had finally arrived. Her ultra-long-range firepower was in coordination with Lord Grimm's assault. The Season 4, Season 5, Season 6, Season 7 best partners were finally pairing up for the first time in this team competition. End chapter.
The King's Avatar, Chapter 1628 Interweaving Battle. Audio source, wuxia-world-audiobook.com. Chapter 1628 Interweaving Battle. Translator, Gnome Yummy. Editor, Gnome Yummy. Boom. Dancing rain fired at the garbage heap, but her goal wasn't as simple as just splashing scraps into the air. When Cloud Piercer twisted his body to dodge the artillery shell, the explosion left a huge hole in the trash pile. The scraps of trash launched into the air rained down. Amidst the rain of trash and the reflection from the flames, Yishu's Lord Grimm rushed out. Bang 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 bang. Jozakai hadn't given up on attacking Lord Grimm. Even while dodging the artillery fire, Cloud Piercer's dual guns were aimed steadily towards Lord Grimm. The fire and light from the explosions, the rowing trash, and the flying bullets constructed a chaotic scene, and Lord Grimm pushed his way through it, 1 step, 2 steps. Lord Grimm moved swiftly, growing closer and closer to Cloud Piercer. Although Jozekai's Cloud Piercer was moving away to keep their distance apart, he wasn't able to do it perfectly under Sumuchung's barrage of artillery shells, especially since he was against Yishu as well. Fortunately, he wasn't alone. Zhang Boteo's empty waves would need a bit of time to climb out from the garbage heap, but Sun Zhang's one autumn leaf had only taken a stumble from the Shincut. He quickly regained his balance. He originally wanted to continue chasing after Wen Yi's little cold hands, but he heard the sound of cannon fire from behind him and turned to look. He saw explosions threatening Cloud Piercer and Lord Grimm closing in. Help! This was Sun Zhang's first thought, but one autumn leaf rushed out in a different direction instead, continuing his chase onto little cold hands. When he broke into a run, he also swung his spear towards Empty Waves, who had plunged headfirst into the garbage heap. Empty Waves wouldn't be affected by the attack, but the spear knocked away much of the trash burying Empty Waves, helping him out quite a bit. Sun Shang left the responsibility of helping Jozakai to Zhang Boteo, while he gave up on his attachment towards Yishu. He made the more proactive choice, continue to pressure the enemy healer to suppress the entire team. Zhang Boteo's Empty Waves freed himself from the trash. He looked around and instantly understood the situation. Yishu's Lord Grimm was about to reach Cloud Piercer. Zhang Boteo didn't say anything and decisively swung his sword. Fire wave slash. Raging flames swept towards Lord Grimm. Fire wave slash was the strongest of the wave slashes. It was quite fast too. In the blink of an eye, it had arrived behind Lord Grimm. At this moment, Lord Grimm jumped forward. If he continued along his current path, he would undoubtedly be hit by the flames. His figure flickered. Boom! Hit. The crowd erupted into applause. The fire wave slash sent Lord Grimm crashing into the garbage heap. Zhang Boteo had gotten his revenge. But Zhang Boteo felt uneasy. It hit. It actually hit. Yes, he was very surprised. The timing had been good, using it just when Lord Grimm was jumping, making it harder for him to respond. However, he really hadn't expected the attack to connect. His goal had been to stop Lord Grimm from continuing forward. Who would have thought it would actually hit? It shouldn't have against someone like Yishu. Yishu must have let it hit him. Zhang Boteo was certain. Sure enough, when the flames from the fire wave slash wrecked, all that remained was a burnt mark on the garbage heap. Lord Grimm had vanished. Where did he go? Underground tunneling technique. Lord Grimm suddenly popped out from the top of the garbage heap. However, Cloudpiercer had just passed by him. Yishu didn't have Lord Grimm dodge the fire wave slash. He used the momentum to make his way into the trash pile so that he could underground tunneling technique. But Josei's intuition was outstanding. Once Lord Grimm laid himself against the garbage heap, he wasn't able to see him anymore. At that moment, he immediately gave up on keeping his position at the top of the garbage heap and had Cloudpiercer jump down. Missed. The underground tunneling technique wouldn't be able to touch Cloudpiercer. Was Lord Grimm just going to let this opportunity go by Thao? No. Yishu reacted quickly. He could only see the corner of Cloudpiercer's jacket when he tunneled out, but it was enough for him to make his decision. He cancelled underground tunneling technique. While in the air, Lord Grimm twisted his body. A cold light swung out, falling light blade. His two hands pressed down on the sword, chasing after Cloudpiercer. The falling light blade let Lord Grimm fall much faster than Cloudpiercer. Gunshot. Yishu had acted immediately when he saw the jacket on Cloudpiercer. On the other hand, when Josei heard a sound from behind him, he immediately realized that Lord Grimm had appeared behind him. It would be too late for Cloudpiercer to turn around and aim, so he placed his two guns on his shoulders and shot behind him. Bullets flew out. Sword light swept down. It was difficult to tell which one was faster, but in an instant, the two characters were tangled together. Cloudpiercer's bullet shot into Lord Grimm's skull at point-blank range. Lord Grimm's sword pierced through Cloudpiercer's back, the sword tip sticking out from his chest. Who won? Who lost in this sort of entanglement? Even the spectating pro players couldn't immediately make the call. Lord Grimm and Cloudpiercer crashed towards the ground together. Both characters seemed to have lost their balance. Then, an explosion, a magic wave. Their reliable partners had come to their support at practically the same time. The explosion swept away Cloudpiercer, while the magic wave swept away Lord Grimm. The two of them separated, but their fight was far from over. Both of them had lost their balance, but everyone could see that they were both fighting to regain it. Bullets shot out from Cloudpiercer's guns. Lord Grimm raised his hands, and the myriad manifestations umbrella was thrown into the air. Shooting stars rained down. Exorcist skill, Starfall. Cloudpiercer was hit by Starfall and smashed into the trash. Lord Grimm was also repeatedly hit by the bullets and fell into the trash as well. Neither of them could dodge. They could only do their best to attack the enemy. In the end, the two were separated, and if they kept this distance away from each other, wouldn't Josei's sharpshooter have the upper hand? A satellite beam descended from the sky, straight down onto Cloudpiercer. WuxaWorldAudio.com. Josei and Yishu were evenly matched, but their two supports became the dividing line. When the two were unable to keep up their attacks, Su Muchung's dancing rain decisively fired a satellite beam, dealing a heavy blow to Cloud Piercer. As for Zhang Bo, he could only cry. It wasn't that he didn't want to. His class didn't have that sort of attack. Lord Grim and Cloud Piercer had fallen into the trash pile. Su Muchung's launcher had a way to attack from the skies, but his spellblade? Waltzing Wave Slash. He could only send out a waltzing wave slash. The divine chains in empty waves' hands leapt into the air, forming a rainbow that dropped down onto Lord Grim. Zhang Bo had executed it beautifully. The rainbow waltzing wave slash was also pleasing to the eye, but how could a waltzing wave slash compare to a launcher's most powerful skill, satellite beam? No matter how beautiful the waltzing wave formation looked, its damage couldn't compare to satellite beams. It was just better than nothing. Lord Grim was hit by the attack and was then immediately able to stand up. As for Cloud Piercer, the satellite beam was still in place, pressing down on Cloud Piercer. The trash surrounding him was thrown into the air. The satellite beam had blasted the trash pile apart. Zhang Bo could only watch as Dancing Rain attacked from afar. He had no way to stop her or interrupt her. All he could do was prevent Yi Shu from adding oil to the fire. Light Wave Slash. The wave slash went straight for Lord Grim. But Yi Shu had clearly expected that Zhang Bo would attack him. After Lord Grim got up, he immediately used a movement skill to dodge the light wave slash. He jumped into the air, aerial gun, and then rotor wings. In the blink of an eye, he had reached the other end of the trash pile into Dancing Rain's satellite beam and down the hole. The satellite beam had blasted a hole in the garbage heap, and Cloud Piercer was at the bottom of it. Surrounding him was trash, and above him was a giant beam of light. He was completely immobilized. Jozakai tried hard to get himself some space, but before the satellite beam ended, Yishu's Lord Grim dropped down into the hole. Pa! Lord Grim stepped on him with Eagle Stamp. How could Jozakai dodge it? He could only have Cloud Piercer trade blow for blow with Lord Grim. However, Yishu had Lord Grim activate reinforced iron bones. The bullets connected, but couldn't move him. After the Eagle Stamp, he elbowed Cloud Piercer in the forehead. And then, while the two were practically touching each other, he used all sorts of close combat techniques. The satellite beam had ended, but Cloud Piercer was in an even more precarious situation than before. The trash surrounding him seemed to be Yishu's helpers, burying his guns. Knee strike. It hit, but Lord Grim was still in front of him. The sharpshooter martial arts skills didn't have strong knockback. There was no way for him to clear a way out by himself. Light. The surrounding trash suddenly lit up. Nebula Wave Slash. Zhang Bo used the Spellblade's level 75 skill, destroying the trash from the outside. He was planning on fishing Cloud Piercer out. The light from the Nebula Wave Slash continued to penetrate the trash, but before the last push, flames swept towards him. End chapter.